Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Colden Company's presentation, Underutilized Features of Microsoft 365. All attendees are in listen-only mode. If you have questions throughout the presentation, please feel free to use the Q&A feature inside of WebEx, and I will get to questions at the end. My name is Jim Lapointe, and very glad to have you all here today. So first of all, let's just get some house cleaning done here and tell you a little bit about us. Colden Company is an information technology service organization, computer guys and gals. Company was founded in 2003. We have offices in St. Augustine, Florida, where I'm talking to you from today, as well as in Ballston Spa, New York. Our customer footprint extends out to about 15 states, as well as outside the U.S. And we have many leading technical certifications. What's pertinent for today is we are a Microsoft partner. We are certified to sell their cloud services. We have what's called their silver competency for small to mid-sized market cloud services. And you'll notice another bullet point there at the bottom. I'm just going to toot our own horn here for a second. Colden Company was a member or selected as a member of the MSP 501 this year. That's from a company called Channel Futures and Channel Partners. They evaluate managed services providers or computer companies. And there's about 40,000 of us in the United States and probably double that worldwide. This is a global award here. They evaluate your business practices and select what they call elite MSPs, and they become part of the top 501. And we were honored to be selected into that group. Beyond that, we were even more surprised that they have their MSP of the Year award, which is kind of like Best Picture at the Oscars. And out of all of the computer companies worldwide, we were third place for MSP of the Year. Very humbled and honored to have received that. On their video conference, we were on there with pretty big MSPs from Australia and New York City and all over the world, and we were honored. So feather in our cap, and we're proud of that one. Also worth mentioning is this week is the Microsoft Ignite conference. We have one of our folks there right now. So if you see a lot of news about Microsoft in your headlines this week, it's because they're announcing a lot of new things this week. Our guy that's there is bombarding me with information over the last few days here. A lot of new stuff. What I can tell you for certain is Microsoft is very heavily investing in Teams. So we'll talk about that a little bit more shortly. Okay, so here's our agenda for today. We're going to touch on what is Microsoft 365, just make sure we're all on the same page here, same starting point. We're going to talk about those underutilized components, and then we'll have a slide on some things to consider before getting to some Q&A. So let's get right to it here. Okay, so Microsoft 365 is really just a rebrand of their Office 365 product. So I'm going to open up a poll question here, and just tell me if you are using Office 365 or Microsoft 365 today. All right, so you'll notice rebrand is going to appear a lot. Microsoft likes to rebrand all sorts of things. We'll talk about some products that they've rebranded, let alone the entire suite that they've rebranded. They've even rebranded some of their subscriptions. So a business premium subscription today is not the same as a business premium subscription that you may have bought a year ago. So they like to rebrand, which makes things a little bit more confusing. But at its core, Microsoft 365 is Microsoft's premium email service. It's their Microsoft Exchange in the Microsoft Cloud, where they're managing some of the back-end components for you. And while there's certainly a lot of value in having a solid and good email platform, yes, there's value in that, but there's also a lot of value to be had in a lot of the ancillary components, and that's what we're going to be focusing on today. So it's really amazing how far Microsoft has come with their 365 product. We were beta testers back in 2011 when it first came out. And honestly, we did not recommend it. It had a lot of issues, and we went in another direction for our cloud email. But Microsoft has really heavily invested in this. This, along with Azure, are really two of their big signature products here. Microsoft is a cloud-first organization. That comes from their CEO, Satya Nadella. He has said that any new features that we roll out, we're rolling them out to the cloud first. So when we talk about things like Microsoft Office subscriptions, yes, you can still buy what they call a perpetual license of Office and not get their subscription. But you're not going to get a lot of the features and enhancements. Microsoft is really trying to push people towards their subscription services. We did find out this week that they will be offering Office 2022, I guess it will be, which will have a perpetual license. What they're doing is just raising the price on that and continuing to add more functionality and features into their Office 365 subscription to really make that value proposition a no-brainer for folks to go with Office 365 rather than the perpetual license. But for those of you that are adverse to subscriptions, just know that that will continue to be an option, at least for that. Okay, so let's get into some of the underutilized components here. Okay, so it's important to note, and I'm sorry, on the poll question, it looks like just about everybody is using Office 365 or Microsoft 365. Okay, so it's important to note that there are many different subscriptions with Microsoft 365 that have access to different components. So not everybody is going to have the same thing when they look at their list of apps. But most will include Teams, OneDrive for Business, and SharePoint. Those are kind of staples. We have done deep dives into some of those products. So we've done a deep dive into Teams. We did a deep dive into Power BI. We did a deep dive into OneDrive for Business. If you missed those webinars, they are on our website. Just go to coldencompany.com and look for Colden TV, and you can go find those presentations. Okay, so let's start off with Teams. Now, Teams has been widely adopted. In fact, when they were behind the 8 ball for a couple of years, behind Slack, but they've really made up that ground and have really grabbed a lot of market share. So there's a good chance that some of you are actually using Teams today. But we still list it here as an underutilized component, and that's because there's just so much you can do with Teams. So it's a collaboration tool. It has an instant messenger communication component to it. It has a video calling component to it like Zoom. If that's what you're using it for, that's great. Those things are valuable, but there's a lot more you can do with Teams. If you're setting up your teams and channels, that's what we recommend, and get the full value out of the collaborative part of Teams. And when I talk about the collaborative component to it, I'm talking about things like being able to modify files and spreadsheets, having multiple people modify it at the same time. So for many years, that was a competitive advantage for Google with their Google Sheets product. You could have 2 people using an Excel spreadsheet at the same time, where with a traditional Excel license, you can't do that, 1 person at a time. Well, Google Sheets was able to do that because they were storing that data in the Google Cloud, and Microsoft has followed suit with their Office Online. You're using Excel Online, and that data is being stored in the Microsoft Cloud, and it allows you to collaborate. We use this quite a bit when we're doing projects. Let's say, for example, we're doing an email migration, and we have to touch 50 computers to update them. We'll create a spreadsheet with those computers and a task list, and we'll have multiple technicians working in that spreadsheet at the same time so we can all see what everybody else is working on. So that collaborative component of it goes with really Office Online, but you get that in Teams. So if you're storing files in a Teams channel and use Office Online to access those files, you can take advantage of that collaboration. Also important to note that you can actually replace your entire phone system with Teams if you like. They announced this week that they have what's called a hardware as a service option now, where you can essentially lease Teams certified phones and webcams and things like that from Microsoft. That's a new announcement this week. The subscription that you need to be able to do that, however, is somewhat pricey. So if that's something you're considering, give us a call and we can talk about options for you. Microsoft is adding a lot into Teams, as we mentioned. They also announced this week they're adding a lot of webinar functionality. They're trying to beat out Zoom. So especially back-end things like recording who attended and how long and those types of things. The back-end webinar reporting has been enhanced. They've added what they're calling a coffee room or a break room, where you can add that to your Teams rollout and your employees can go to the coffee room and video chat with other employees. They've even gone so far as to acquire a company that does digital meditation. And you can set up a meditation room in your Teams if you want, and do some meditation to start your day or end your day if you want. So Microsoft is really going all out with Teams here, is the point there. So our suggestion here with Teams is, if you'd like to roll out Teams, roll it out as a project. And we like to say here at Colden Company, IT projects are projects. And a lot of IT companies don't train their folks in project management, and they don't roll things out with project management skills in mind here. So with Teams, that's a great way to roll out the Team software to your group, is to treat it as a project. Get a sponsor inside your organization. Come up with a pilot program. Do training. Our folks are trained in project management. We go through recognizing scope creep and managing resources and time and those types of things. And we found we've been a lot more successful when we treat it that way. If we just install Teams on everyone's computer and say, here you go, it's going to have limited use and limited value to your organization. If you as an organization roll it out as a project and have a kickoff meeting, understand what your needs are, figure out how you want to get it rolled out, how you're going to train your folks, and treat it like a project, get that pilot program underway, take away other tools, so the folks that are using the pilot have to use Teams for that project, you're going to have a lot better success. And then what happens is the folks inside your organization are going to be the ones that are going to drive adoption. They're the ones that are going to say, hey, I've got this other project here that would probably work well in Teams. And they're going to talk to their coworkers, and you're going to have better success fully utilizing Teams in that manner. So treat it like a project. Okay, I've got a screenshot here. I'm not doing a live demo of our Teams because we have a lot of customer information in there that we want to protect. That's why I've got some of these Teams blocked out here. But what I'm showing you is a team site here for Microsoft Teams and a team deployment plan with some tasks. Those of you that are familiar with Microsoft Planner might be looking at this and say, that looks an awful lot like Microsoft Planner. Well, it is. And that's another beautiful thing about Teams, is there's a lot of integration to other applications. There's a plus button here in the upper right corner of that screen. If you were to click that, you're going to have a list of lots and lots of applications, not just Microsoft applications, that you can pull into Teams. So this here, we pulled in our Planner plan into Teams, and if I want to add a task here, I can just simply click here. And that will update on the Planner side as well. So if you're used to logging into Planner by itself, anything you do here is going to be synchronized because it's really the same data on the back end. They're both accessing the data the same way. But with Planner, it's pretty much full functionality from within Teams. Now, it's not going to be the case with all third-party apps. If you're using other project management apps like Trello or Asana, they do have integrations into Teams. They may not be fully functional. So I've actually done that. I've used Asana for a joint project with a customer. I could do basic things from inside of Teams. And if there was a particular function that wasn't supported inside of Teams, when I clicked on it, it would just simply open up a web browser and make me log into Asana, and I would do the rest of what I was trying to do inside of the Asana web portal. So that's another nice feature of Teams here, is being able to pull a lot of other resources into Teams. Okay, well, we spent a lot of time on Teams here. There's a lot more to go. Microsoft Forms is also underutilized. That's a great thing. It's free for surveys, polls, and other types of forms. Easily accessible from the Microsoft portal, so you can log in at office.com, or you can go to login.microsoftonline.com, look for apps in the right-hand corner there, and you'll probably see forms there. Easy to create forms, and again, they can be pulled into Teams. So here's a screenshot of a form that I created for the webinar here, very quick and dirty, but it's really simple to use. I went in there, typed my question. You can choose, do you want a multiple choice response? How do you want your response to look? Here I chose stars. How many stars do you want? I'm going to have a rating out of 5 stars. Here I chose a number system, and I chose to have 10. I could have chose 5, whatever you want. So there's a lot of flexibility within forms, very, very easy to use. And again, exportable. So you can export results into Excel of any survey results. It ties in very nicely with other Microsoft products. There's also a nice feature. If you want to see what your form would look like on a mobile phone, you can click a button, and it shows you, okay, here's what it would look like if someone were to bring up your poll or questionnaire on a mobile phone. Okay. Another underutilized component is SharePoint and OneDrive. Now, we have done a deep dive into OneDrive for Business, so I'm not going to get too deep in the weeds on this one here. But a lot of people are confused. What's the difference between SharePoint and OneDrive? And it's also confusing because there's OneDrive Personal and OneDrive for Business. They're two separate things. So let me first say what they have in common. The commonality is they're really both using SharePoint sites on the back end. So if you're storing files in OneDrive, they're really being stored in a SharePoint site. Same thing goes with Teams for that matter. When you're putting files into Teams, what happened behind the scenes is when you created that team, it created a SharePoint site for that team, and it's storing those files into SharePoint. So SharePoint is really the back end for a lot of this. The difference is OneDrive is really strictly document storage, whereas if you were to access the SharePoint app by itself, you're going to get a few more collaborative tools and dashboards and things like that. What a lot of people don't realize is you can set up these either SharePoint or OneDrive sites and have them viewable through your regular File Explorer. So folks may be used to seeing their C drive under my computer and maybe a share drive that goes to server data. You can have it appear there. And if that's a place where folks are used to accessing files, make it accessible there. Make it more usable for your folks. You can synchronize those folders down to your PC. You want to be really careful about doing that, especially for OneDrive for Business, which is meant for company-wide documents, whereas OneDrive Personal is meant for your personal documents. For example, if you have a folder that you've set to synchronize down to your laptop, and you might do that because you want to take those files with you when you're offline. But if one of your teammates or coworkers decides to dump 50 gigs of videos into that folder, you're going to synchronize that down to your laptop and possibly blow up your hard drive. So you want to think about those policies pretty carefully before rollout. Another feature of OneDrive for Business is it has a built-in backup component. It backs up your desktop, documents, and pictures, and that's it. So that may be sufficient for folks. We've seen folks that are paying for third-party backup tools, and really all the stuff that they're backing up is in these locations. They don't need to be paying for a third-party tool for that. Use the OneDrive for Business that comes with your subscription. It's free. Now, if you're using QuickBooks or other applications and you want to get that stuff backed up, then yes, maybe a third-party utility is still necessary. But it's worth looking at. Why not save yourself some money if you can? So the OneDrive for Business backup is definitely an underutilized component. Okay, Microsoft Planner. We touched on that a little bit here. It's really their task management or project management application. You can create your task lists. You organize them into what they call buckets. They have some nice charts and graphs that you can look at. There's also a phone app, so you can pull up your plans inside of your phone. It's not to be confused with Microsoft To Do, which is also a task management application. To Do is really meant for your personal tasks, whereas Planner is designed for company-wide use. So Planner, we are going to take a look at in a little bit more detail here. Just reminding you that when I showed this tab here inside of Teams, that was actually a Planner plan pulled into Teams. Okay, so I'm going to break from the PowerPoint here for a second and just show you Planner real quick. Okay, so I'll make this bigger here. I have logged into the Microsoft portal and gone up here and selected Planner out of my apps. And that's how I've gotten to the screen here. And it's going to show me a list of my plans that I've got here. Very simple. If you want to add a new plan, it's as simple as clicking up here, New Plan, and it will add it to your list. When you're adding a new plan, you can add different members of your organization to there. So I've got this plan set up specifically for the webinar. If I wanted to add someone from my organization, just start typing their name, and you can see here I can add Rob to our plan if I wanted to. Now, if you get a lot of plans here, they might get a little bit unruly here. You can mark them as favorites simply by clicking the star here, and you can see what that did. That moved my webinar plan up into favorites, so it will always be top of mind here and easily accessible. Simple as clicking and unclicking the star. There. So the way this works is organizing your tasks into buckets. And very easy, if I want to add a new bucket here, I simply click there. What do I want to name my bucket? Maybe I'll call it Webinar Setup as an example. And I've got a new bucket. If I want to move that, I can slide it around. Everything is real easy to move around. And I can add tasks there. So maybe I want to create invitations. You can set a due date. I want to have that done, let's say, today. And I can assign that. Right now, I'm the only member of this plan, so I'll add it to myself here. Okay, and then I'll add that task in. Now, you can see here some of these tasks are lit up in red. That means these are overdue tasks. The nice thing is because this is integrated with Office 365, their email solution, I get emails about this stuff. So when I have a task due for the day, it's going to let me know, hey, this is due today, or hey, you've got overdue tasks. Go ahead and get those things caught up. Very simple. If I have completed a task, simply click it. You can see it move down into my completed tasks here. This one here, it's a half full circle. That tells me that that task is in progress. If it's this one is marked as important, you can select if it's in progress, not started, those types of things. You can also label your tasks. You can make it blue. I don't know why you'd want to do that, but if that means something to you, you can do that. And you can see on your charts here, these are my tasks. I've got 2 of them that are late to complete, 1 not started yet. It'll break it down into the different buckets. It will also break it down into members so you get some charts. You can also have a schedule that shows you a calendar of your different tasks, which ones are complete, which ones are overdue. They'll be in red, and ones that are coming up. So you get a nice schedule there as well. I've got this organized into buckets. I could organize that differently if I wanted to. So I could come up here and say group by priority. And it will tell me what's urgent, important. And if you want to change the status of one, say I wanted to make this urgent, all you got to do is drag it over and it becomes urgent. It's simple to just drag and drop. Okay, there's also a My Tasks here. And this will tell you, different view, I guess, of whether they're not started, in progress, or completed. Again, easy to just drag and drop these things around. And now that one's complete. Okay, and as I mentioned, this is tied in, so there will be email notifications of different events into your email because it's integrated. Now, if I were to go up here and select to do, we talked about that a little bit. Just show you that really quickly. I've got my to-do tasks for the day. This is a little bit more simple than Planner, but I've already fed the pets today, so I can check that off as being done. I've already checked backups, and I didn't check our flux capacitors yet. We'll get to that in a little bit. But you can see that Microsoft To Do has some similar things, but it's really designed for personal use as opposed to company-wide. Okay, so that was just a little bit of a dive into Planner, and we touched on To Do as well. Microsoft Lists. This is a brand new feature just rolled out this month with Microsoft. Has some really nice templates here. If you want to create a list of issues or an employee onboarding list, they give you some nice templates. Another nice thing is this can be pulled into Teams. So I'm going to show you that here. We've got, if those of you that have ever attended any of our webinars in the past, you may be familiar with our top secret Project Mercury. Unfortunately, we can't tell you what that's all about, but you can see that we do use flux capacitors. And this is a list of assets for that particular project. Very top secret. Any good top secret project has to have a lot of Gorilla Glue on hand. And you can set the status of these things and pull that list right into Teams, or you can access it by opening lists under your list of applications and choosing your list from there. So this one's brand new, got a lot of nice templates. Okay. Moving on, Automate. So you may be familiar with Automate as Flow. Microsoft, again, rebranded. So they're calling it Automate, or Power Automate is a business automation tool. Same thing as with lists, there's a lot of templates for common uses. They've got some examples out there. You can send a custom email when there's a new file added to a site. So maybe it's a invoice that needs approval. You move it to a particular location, it'll automatically email the person you want saying, hey, this is out there for your approval. There are push notifications. Hey, when the boss emails me, ding my phone so I know. Automatically record survey responses in SharePoint. These are just some examples. What I encourage you to do is log into your Microsoft 365 account, click on the little button there for all the different apps, and choose Automate, and just look and see what's there. Do any of those make sense for your business? Automate has a lot of capability to it. It's tough to touch on it here in a short webinar here, but there can be some value in Automate, and it's definitely underutilized. Okay, we're approaching 11:30 here, so there's a bunch of other products that you may have already with your subscription. Stream is like their YouTube for video management. There's Power Apps, which includes Power BI. Again, we did a webinar on Power BI, so there's a deep dive into that if you want to see that. They have bookings for customer appointments, Yammer, so there's social networking service, and then, of course, OneNote. I'm going to open up another poll here. Just ask if any of these on the screen, are any of you using any of those today? So go ahead and answer that. There are more that I have not listed here, and what we did is try to choose some of the apps that Microsoft is invested in. There's some other ones out there that, you know, reading the tea leaves, Microsoft's probably going to deprecate or rebrand. We didn't include those, but there's quite a list that Microsoft is going to keep around and going to invest in. So looking at the results on this one, it's pretty good. There's actually more folks that are using some of these apps here than not. So that's good to hear. All right, I will close that poll. And we're going to move on to considerations here. So if you're utilizing any of these components, you really have to think about a few things. One is make sure you're backing up as much data as you can. So we mentioned Teams data. So if you're putting files into Teams, that's really going into SharePoint. If you're putting files into OneDrive, that's really going to SharePoint. It'd be nice to back that up, right? And there are some really nice tools to do that. We have one that we recommend, and we've had to use it. Works very well. If you're pulling in things like Planner, it's not going to back that up. So you're relying on the Microsoft Cloud for stability there. And with Planner, you're not really storing too much in the way of files there anyway. It's more setting up your plans. But we definitely recommend a third-party backup for your Microsoft 365 tenant. It's going to get a lot of the data backed up for easy restoration. So the more that you take advantage of this, the more you really got to be sure about your disaster recovery. Number two, train your staff. Make sure they know how to utilize this. It's something Microsoft is really good at, is they have put a lot of time into videos, and there's a lot of good training videos. So for example, when we're rolling out Teams, we have a set of 3 videos that we like to roll out to our folks and let them watch those videos and get an understanding of what Teams is all about and how to use it. So make sure your staff has the training materials to be able to effectively utilize these components. And we mentioned treat it as a project. Plan the implementation. Don't just install Teams and say, here you go, folks. Have a plan for it. Have that pilot project, have a sponsor within your organization, and you'll have a much better result in the end. And finally, always have security in mind. Particularly if you're a company that is working with protected information, healthcare data, social security numbers, HR type information. If you're putting that stuff out there in the Microsoft Cloud, you want to make sure that you've got the proper security on it. So have security in mind when you're rolling this out. Okay, so let's summarize here. Microsoft has a large array of applications available to businesses as part of their Microsoft 365 suite. Many of them you're already paying for. They're included in your subscriptions today. So our suggestion is invest some time into this. Look at these applications to see if some of them may solve some of your business problems, or at the very least, it may save your organization some money. Are you having a particular business problem? Bring it to us. That's what we're here for. We may be able to suggest a product that you already have access to resolve it. And we always like to finish. This is a quote that if you've been on any of our presentations, we always like to end with this. If you're running your business the same way you were 2 or 3 years ago, you're not staying the same. You're falling behind. And that's because your competition is continuing to evolve and continuing to take advantage of technology. So as you may be staying the same and doing things the same way, your competition might be passing you. Okay, so at this point, I do see some questions that have come in. So I'm going to go ahead and look at those. But in the meantime, I'm going to put my contact information up on the screen here. That's our phone number. My direct extension is 102 if you want to come to me directly. My email address, and I will get to some questions here. Okay, so the first one came in early, and I may have answered this already, but how do I know what applications I have with my subscription? So good question. What you would do is log in to the portal, office.com or login.microsoftonline.com. And when you're logged in, you'll see a list of applications, usually up in the upper left-hand corner. Looks like a block with a bunch of dots in it. If you click on that, you'll have a choice of all the applications. That's your list to choose from. So that's how you'll see that. Second question here, is Power BI free? So that's a good question, a very good question. Power BI is free for free to use, except if you want to share, like if you created a dashboard inside of Power BI and you want to share that dashboard with your executive or your finance person, you have to have the Power BI Pro license in order to do that. So kind of what Microsoft has done here is given you the basics of Power BI for free, and then when you want to kind of roll it out, you're going to have to pay for the Pro subscription for that. So the short answer is yes, it is free, but if you want to really make use of it, no, you have to buy the Power BI Pro subscription. Okay, third question here. Our parent company uses SharePoint. Is this the same thing? So I assume you're talking about the Office 365 version of SharePoint. And yes, SharePoint is something that can be installed locally. So you may have a on-premise version of SharePoint. Really what it is SharePoint in the cloud, essentially, is what the Microsoft 365 version of SharePoint is. Also worth noting, we talked about some new apps. Microsoft mentioned yesterday in their conference, they're coming out with something called SharePoint Cortex, where they're considering it a major enhancement or major revision to how document management and the way, what they're saying, knowledge will be transferred throughout your organization. So I don't know much about it yet. They just announced it yesterday, but it's kind of a SharePoint enhancement that will be coming in the near future. Okay, so those were the questions. If we can be of assistance to you in any way, shape, or form, our contact information is on the screen. We very much appreciate everyone taking time out of their day to join us. Everyone have a great day and stay safe. Thank you very much.